Good evening, YouTube. HeirofCarthage here, and yes, we've got some more dwarf gameplay. This time myself playing. This was from my stream the other day. I'm facing off against the vampire counts led by Reptile King. And the vampire counts are an interesting matchup to the dwarves. There are certain paths that the vampire counts can take that will make it very difficult for them to beat the dwarves because of how the dwarves behave. And there are other paths the vampire counts can take that are a little unorthodox that can absolutely give the dwarves fits for days. So it's an interesting matchup because I think that both factions have some extreme strengths versus each other depending on how they're played and depending on the players. In this case, what I was preparing for was lots of fear and terror, and so all of my army's infantry is Longbeards and Slayers, which means that the Slayers can't be routed, and the Longbeards dang near can't be routed because they're immune to psychology. My guys are shielded, not because we're worried about missiles, but because it's going to provide extra melee defense, and they are going to be very tough. I've also brought Gotrek and Ungram in the same army, so my whole army is basically unroutable. I do have a unit of hammers deep in the middle so that they can't be charged. The vampires could still use stuff like Wind of Death or other things, Fate of Buna, Purple Sun, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to introduce you to the whole vampire army, but unfortunately for me, I did have two Bugman's Rangers because they are able to fight off zombies, and they also heal while they are fighting. So this is a unit I brought in order to try and do some range damage. I hid them in the woods thinking I'd pull them out later in the battle, but they were Vanguard deployed right on top of the Chillgeist. Fantastic. It's a great way for me to start the battle. So the Chillgeist right on top of two very expensive skirmishers. The vampires have gone with an infantry build, and I actually think this is one of their more challenging paths to victory. We'll see whether or not Reptile King can pull it off. He's got 4 units of zombies up front. This can be good for absorbing blasting charges, missile fire, all kinds of stuff, and they just throw extra hit points into a fight. Not a bad choice. Skeleton warriors, that's pretty dicey versus the dwarves. That is one type of infantry that the dwarves can handily defeat pretty much time and again, especially Longbeards. A Banshee, the Ethereal, is something that could be a good pick. Not a ton of dwarf units are going to be cranking out magic damage, but some do. So the Banshee basically can cause terror if someone's brought a whole bunch of dwarf warriors or miners. The Banshee can be useful at slipping into the lines and absorbing a little bit of damage. A couple of Fellbats, great at disrupting artillery and skirmishers. And then in the back lines, well back, are a couple of Graveguard with great weapon in order to try and cut through some armored infantry. And then there are a couple of Black Knights supporting on either flank, or one on each flank. And then same with these Cairn Wraiths. Cairn Wraiths are fast moving, again ethereal. They won't terror out certain dwarf units, and you got to be careful with them, but they can be handy for their speed sometimes to work the flank and attack on dwarves. And I'll tell you the army of vampires that terrifies me the most. We've also got these crypt ghouls out here, the Feasters of the Dusk, Feasters in the Dusk. I'll tell you what terrifies me with the vampire armies is whenever you get about 3 Vargulfs and a black coach all coming at you. That is a terrifying moment as a dwarf, because if you don't have the right counters to that, you can get jacked up bad. Now, this army, again, was meant to resist a lot of infantry and stay standing with the leadership and armor. However, let's say that, for instance, that Reptile King had brought the Black Coach, or 2 of them, and then a couple of Argulfs and all that stuff. This would be a struggle. I have units that can kill those units, but it's a matter of whether I could actually get enough damage done to them because I didn't bring a Rune Lord and I don't have skirmishers. This is why I didn't bring skirmishers, though, except for the Bugmans, because the Bugmans could fight off this type of thing. And I'm trying not to play into the hands of the vampires by feeding them a bunch of expensive skirmishers to their summons, their bats, and their cavalry. So I want to make them have to chew through a ton of heavily armored infantry. Let's hit play. See how this plays out. Vlad von Karstein's here. I did immediately check to see whether or not he had Wind of Death. He did not, but that's also part of the reason why I've deployed in a bit of a weird checkerboarded formation here where no 2 units are necessarily in the same line with each other very close, because I didn't want to get hit by a Wind of Death. My Longbeards will kill skeletons for days. It's one of the few units that they will kill for days, and if they kill skeletons, you know they're going to kill the zombies. And like I said, this is just going to be a dwarf onion to see if I can hold out and force the vampires to try and deal all the damage they need to. I'm going to pull back my hammers, pull back some of my Longbeards with great weapons, just let those front Longbeards hold the line, be patient with my lords, Again, we're just going to hold the line, hold the flanks. The vampires are charging me. We do get expert charge defense on Longbeards. Another reason I have brought them. It helps them resist some of the charging of the monsters, at least initially. They won't be braced forever, though, and eventually you might start to take some damage. Feasters in the Dusk, not exactly a unit I want my Slayers up against, because they're pretty high damage output against low armor. But, I mean, Slayers will still give them a good fight. Vlad immediately jumps in, and I'm going to have Ungrim and Gotrek go after him. Gotrek stopped his charge for some weird reason, though. Ungrim alone would get chewed up by Vlad. But with Gotrek here, Gotrek is capable of outputting a massive amount of damage. And we also had the Beguilement there, so that's why I pulled Ungrim out for a second and then redeployed him. I'm holding the hammers. I don't want to get too balled up anywhere where the vampires have a good opportunity to hit me with some magic or a bunch of rear charges. I see that I'm fighting the Feasters of the Dusk. I go ahead and exchange the Slayer for a Longbeard there because now this is a terrible fight for the Feasters of the Dusk. And then over here, I'm okay with this fight. My Longbeards will lose to the Graveguard with Great Weapon, but the Graveguard with Great Weapon is going to have to basically grind them out to the death. And so my warriors will be able, or my Longbeards will be able to dish some damage back to these guys and hold them for a very long time. Gonna see some summons here because Vlad and his Banshee girlfriend are taking a lot of damage at the hands of my two Slayers. I think the saddest thing here is that Gotrek is just the better Slayer, and Ungrim has to be angry and jealous. But the two of them together, again, they were brought, so when you bring a Vargulf army and a Black Coach army, the goal is that you take out the Lords with them. The Vargulfs come and just bully the Lord or your skirmishers, and Gotrek and Ungrim will not be bullied very well by a Vargulf. Now, they'll probably get their crap knocked everywhere by a Black Coach. And look here, see, I'm going to throw these hammers in against key targets. This Graveguard with Great Weapon was trying to get inside my formation. Hammer time. One of the few times that you'll ever see me pick hammers, and it's still risky against the vampires. Still quite risky. But since they don't have missiles, I'm a little more inclined to do it. They still do have Chariot, and it makes it dangerous. But yeah, look at that. 62 Graveguard, 63 Graveguard with Great Weapon cleaned up in no time. Very effective trade. I don't have a good answer to the Cairn Wraiths, but their leadership is not fantastic, and sometimes you can play on that. Now here the Banshee kind of got chased off, but then decided to come back for more. Despite being ethereal, this is still just a lot of damage being outputted here by two very tough characters. And the Banshee decides that she is going to go back to the underworld and leave this fight to Von Daddy Karstein. Definitely good for him to do some summons, but he is up close and personal with a couple of dwarves who are going to unleash an absolute beating on him. And again, Vlad is a tanky lord in melee. He is a good duelist. He's just going to get overwhelmed here, and the vampires have no answer to the leadership and the armor here. The hammerers, I can move them around at will, put them up against whatever key target I think I need to. Cairn Wraiths over here perform well, just takes them a very long time. Again, you're not going to see any terror play here. These Slayers aren't going to give way to terror. Not a great fight for the Slayers, but they're just not going to rout do the terror. I think the only unit that can terror rout here is my Hammerers, which is sad because it's elite infantry, but with so many things that already don't terror out for the dwarves, the Hammerers don't really need immune to psychology. They need to have some weakness there. In any case, we're going to see, again, Longbeards with Great Weapons, one of the few places where they'll excel for their cost. The vampires are just not real effective from an infantry standpoint at cutting through armor. They are good at it in other respects, with magic, with a chariot, with Vargulf. There are other ways to do it. Mortis engines. Oh my gosh, if he would have brought a Mortis engine. I'm so glad he didn't. I didn't have any missiles to deal with it. That's another one that I just totally miscalculated here. So I'm going to come out with a victory. I do have one more battle I played on stream that was an epic battle against the Wood Elves, and I'm saving that one for when I get back from vacation. So keep an eye out from it. It's a rather long battle, and it comes down to the wire. I mean, super close. So make sure you stick around to see that one. I'm going to fast forward through the rest of this one. Reptile, thanks for the game. Again, the army pick just kind of saved me here. And that's my goal. I'm trying to pick an army to make it hard for my opponent. I'm not always successful in that. In this case, I was. There are certainly vampire builds out there that can give the dwarves fits, and I would say the opposite is also true. I think there's dwarf builds out there that can give the vampires fits. So thank you, Reptile. Appreciate the matchup. In this case, the dwarves got kills for days, something you won't see, but it's chaff. Not something they should be super proud of in getting a lot of kills against zombies or skeleton warriors. I mean, if you take a look at the other vampire infantry that was a little better, I mean, they are getting a fair number of kills. Dwarves don't have a large unit count. My Bugmans never died. They fought that whole battle against the Chillgeist and survived. And the Chillgeist even had help from some Black Knights. Those two units, neither one got a very good charge into my Bugmans, and then because of the liquid fortification, which is the healing for them, they fought the whole thing through. Very impressive performance from the Bugman's Rangers. So again, stick around. I got a battle where Regina takes the Wood Elves, and she is an elf connoisseur, and really puts up a great fight. I hope you all enjoyed this one. Again, leave your comments. What do you think about the Dwarf Vampire count matchup? Who do you like to play as? What kind of tactics do you like? Let's share some thoughts down in the comments. And also, maybe you have thoughts on how you would have beaten my build or what you would have picked different. There's a lot of things I can think of from the vampires that would have given me some trouble in that case. Anyway, HeirofCarthage signing out for now. Leave a like if you liked it. If you hated it, get up there, smash that hate button. Go in the comments and tell me why I stink, and I will read it and weep. Air signing out for now. See y'all soon.